When you're home alone, every sound feels different. Every shadow feels wrong. The familiar creaks and groans of your house seem louder than they should be, and every whisper of the wind feels far too close for comfort. These are 3 true stories from people who were alone in their homes and realized only when it was too late that they weren't alone at all. Mia was 17 years old. Her parents had gone away for the weekend, leaving her in charge of the quiet suburban house. The first night passed in silence, a deep, unsettling quiet that felt heavier than usual. She eventually made her way up to her second-floor bedroom, the familiar comfort of her own space, a welcome relief from the empty house below. She settled into bed, pulling the covers up to her chin. The house hummed softly, the gentle drone of the refrigerator from the kitchen below. Then she heard it, faint rhythmic sound, a tapping on her window. Tap, tap, tap. She tried to ignore it. It was probably just a branch, she told herself, swaying in the wind. But the sound continued, steady and persistent. Slowly, the tapping began to change. It became a scratching, slow, sharp, and deliberate noise, like fingernails dragging across the glass. Her room was on the second floor. Nothing could reach that window. No tree branch was close enough, and the roof line was too steep for anyone to climb. She sat up in bed, her heart beginning to pound against her ribs. She got out of bed slowly, her feet touching the cold wooden floor. The moment her feet hit the floor, the scratching stopped. An abrupt, total silence fell over the room. It was more unnerving than the noise had been. Then, a whisper. A voice so close it seemed to be right beside her ear. Shh. Mia. The voice was dry, raspy, and fundamentally wrong. It was a sound that didn't belong to any person she knew. Mia, open it. She didn't hesitate. She ran. She slammed her bedroom door shut, fumbling with the lock until she heard the satisfying click. Her hands shaking, she grabbed her phone and called the police, whispering frantically to the dispatcher on the other end. When the officers arrived, they searched the property with powerful flashlights. They found footprints in the damp mud alongside the house, bare footprints leading directly toward the wall beneath her window. The tracks went up the side of the house, stopping halfway to her room. There was no ladder, no rope, no tool of any kind. There was no human explanation for how someone could have climbed that sheer surface. Someone or something had climbed. And then it had simply disappeared. Mia never slept upstairs in that room again. Jordan arrived home at 2:14 in the morning. He was exhausted after a long shift at the restaurant. He locked the front door behind him, the deadbolt sliding home with a heavy thud. The first thing he wanted to do was take a long, hot shower to wash away the stress of the day. The hot water was a welcome relief, steam filling the small bathroom and relaxing his tense muscles. He closed his eyes, letting the sound of the water fill the silence. Then he heard it, a woman's voice, speaking softly somewhere in the kitchen. He froze, his body going rigid. He turned off the water, the sudden silence amplifying the frantic beat of his heart. He strained his ears, listening. Nothing, just the quiet drip of the shower head. He stepped out of the shower, grabbing a towel and wrapping it around his waist. He stood motionless, listening. The voice came again, a hushed whisper, followed by what sounded like a soft, shallow breath. It was definitely coming from the kitchen. He began to walk toward the kitchen doorway, his steps slow and careful on the cold tile. Each footfall seemed deafeningly loud. He reached the edge of the doorway, peering around the corner, his body tensed for whatever he might see. No one was there. The kitchen was empty, bathed in the pale glow of the streetlights outside. He felt a wave of relief, but it was short-lived. That's when he saw the back door. It was unlocked. It was open, just slightly ajar. Jordan always locked that door. Always. It was a habit ingrained in him since childhood. Never forgot. As he stared at the open door, a cold dread creeping up his spine, his eyes fell to the floor. There, on the dark linoleum, was a single wet footprint. It was small, fresh, and unmistakably human. Jordan lives alone. He knew with sickening certainty that someone had been inside his house. Liam was sitting for a family friend. It was a large, older house with a character that felt strange from the moment he walked in. The feeling was strongest near the basement. A heavy, cold presence seemed to emanate from behind the door that led downstairs. Around midnight, as he was making a final check of the ground floor, he noticed the basement door. It was open, it's just a crack, revealing a sliver of darkness beyond. He was sure he had closed it earlier. He walked over, pushed it shut, and turned the lock, hearing the distinct click as the bolt slid into place. Satisfied, he went upstairs to the living room. A few minutes later, he heard footsteps. They were coming up the basement stairs, slow, heavy, deliberate steps. They stopped right at the door. Silence then. The doorknob began to turn. Once, then twice, more forcefully. Someone was on the other side, trying to open the locked door. Liam's blood ran cold. He was frozen in place, listening to the rattling of the knob. Then a whisper, muffled but clear, came from the other side of the door. "Why did you lock it?" Liam didn't wait for an answer. He bolted for the front door, ran out into the cold night air, and didn't stop until he was halfway down the block. He called the police, his voice trembling as he explained what had happened. The officers arrived and searched the house. The main floors were empty. They unlocked the basement door and descended into the darkness. Someone had been living there for weeks, and according to the timeline, they had left the basement just minutes before Liam heard the footsteps coming up the stairs. Being home alone isn't scary because it's quiet. It's scary because you never know who might be there with you. Watching, listening, waiting. Get ready, because more true horror stories are on the way, and they're chilling.